Vancouver developers are trapped. And I do not mean the market is slow. They are stuck inside a business model that only works when prices are rising, financing is cheap, and buyers feel fearless. Right now, none of that is true. Prices are not rising at all, financing is no longer cheap, and buyers are fearful. So what happens when a developer is holding land bought near peak pricing, facing construction costs that jumped and never came back down, municipal fees that do not care whether the market is hot or cold, and a lender that still wants 70% of the building sold before releasing real construction money? You get what we're starting to see today across Metro Vancouver. Projects paused, projects cancelled, projects converted to rentals, and in some cases, projects pushed into receivership. Most of this never makes headlines. It just quietly disappears. And from the outside, their reaction feels obvious. Just lower the price. Take the hit. Move on. So why are developers acting like they cannot? Why are prices still sticky even as sales are slow? Why are launches vanishing instead of getting cheaper? And why are some developers suddenly running out of time? Because once the system breaks, it does not bend, it snaps. Today, I'm going to break down the trap, how Vancouver's presale system stopped working, why condos kept getting smaller, and why that decision is now backfiring. Why developers cannot cut prices without blowing up financing entirely, and why insolvencies are showing up in projects people assumed were untouchable. Once you see how this connects, the market stops looking confusing and it starts to seem obvious. In Vancouver, most condo towers do not start because a developer feels optimistic. They start because the financing requires it. For decades, the system worked like this. A developer buys land, designs a project, and launches pre-sales. Once enough units are sold, usually around 70% of the building, lenders release construction financing. Only then does the building actually move forward. That pre-sale requirement is critical. Without it, the project does not get built. During the boom years, this was not a problem. Investors dominated pre-sales, units sold quickly, and developers hit their targets fast. Financing flowed, everyone assumed demand would always be there, but that assumption no longer holds. Interest rates rose sharply. Investors pulled back. Assignment buyers disappeared. End users started comparing pre-sales to resale and asking why they were paying more to wait years for a smaller unit. Sales slowed, and that created the first crack in the system. Because when pre-sales slow, projects do not just sell more slowly, they stall. And a stalled project is one of the most expensive positions a developer can be in. Land loans are still accruing interest. Consultants still need to be paid, approvals still expire, carrying costs keep piling up, and there is no revenue coming in. That is the moment when developers start to panic quietly, long before the public ever hears about a cancellation. So why are projects getting cancelled? It is easy to assume developers are overreacting or playing games. In reality, most cancellations come down to math. Condo projects are planned years in advance. Land is bought based on assumptions about future sale prices. Financing is structured around those assumptions. Construction budgets are locked in, municipal fees are set, and by the time a project launches, a large portion of the cost is already committed. If buyers are not willing to pay the prices required to make the project work, the developer has very few options. They can launch anyway and hope demand improves, which is risky because slow absorption can prevent financing from being released. They can redesign the project, which costs time and money and does not guarantee better results, or they can cancel or delay and stop the financing bleed. Most cancellations are not strategic moves. They are defensive decisions made when a project simply no longer pencils in. That is why projects are being shelved even though housing demand still exists. Demand did not disappear. The financing model stopped working. Developers cannot simply lower prices, and this is the biggest misunderstanding in the market. From the outside, it feels obvious. If buyers are hesitant, lower the price. But developers do not have the flexibility most people think they do. The price of a new condo is not set based on vibes or greed. It is built from a cost structure that is largely fixed by the time pre-sales launch. Land is often purchased years earlier, sometimes at peak prices. That land is usually financed and the interest clock never stops. On top of that come architectural costs, engineering, planning consultants, rezoning timelines, and city requirements. Municipal fees alone are substantial and they do not adjust based on market sentiment. Development charges and levies are formula-based. They are owed whether the market is hot or cold. Then there's construction. Material costs surged over the past several years. Labor costs followed. Even if some inputs soften, most contracts are locked in long before a building rises. So when buyers say just lower the price, what they are actually asking is for the developer to absorb losses that can quickly reach tens of millions of dollars. There is also a financing constraint. Lenders do not just care about how many units are sold, they care about the prices those units sold for. If prices drop too far, appraisals can fall, loan conditions can be triggered, financing can be reduced or pulled entirely. In some cases, cutting prices can actually make a project unfeasible. Then there is the human side. Pre-sale buyers who paid more early do not react well when later buyers get deep discounts. That increases the risk of disputes, refusal to close, and legal action at completion. That is why developers try everything before openly cutting prices. They offer incentives, they cover fees, they upgrade finishes, they structure deposits creatively, anything that preserves the headline price. But when the gap between what buyers will pay and what the project needs becomes too wide, incentives stop working. At that point, the project does not pencil. And when a project does not pencil, it does not get built at all. Before we move on to the next point, if you're finding this useful, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video. One main reasons buyers do not buy pre-sales anymore is because the homes are too small. So the next question to ask is, why units kept getting smaller over time? This part often gets blamed on greed, but the reality is structural. As prices rose faster than incomes, developers faced a problem. Buyers had monthly payment limits and wages were not keeping up. The easiest way to keep units appearing affordable was not to lower the price per square foot. It was to shrink the unit. Smaller units meant lower total prices. They sold faster, they appealed to the investors, they helped developers hit pre-sale targets more reliably. Over time, the market shifted towards studios and small one-bedroom units because those were the easiest to move. Parking and storage became optional. Layouts became tighter. Livability took a backseat to absorption. During the boom, nobody complained. Units sold out regardless. Now, the downside is obvious. End users compared new builds to resale and see less space, worse layouts, and higher prices. Investors are no longer buying purely for appreciation, and the buyer pool that remains is far more selective. The product that was designed to thrive in a speculative environment is struggling in a normal one. So, why are new projects not launching with better units? This is one of the most important parts of the story because it affects everyone, not just pre-sale buyers. Developers are not launching projects because launching right now is extremely risky, regardless of the layout. If you launch and fail to hit pre-sale targets, you're stuck. You cannot proceed and you cannot easily walk away. Carrying a stalled site drains capital and increases lender pressure. Selling the site is not easy either, especially if it was purchased at peak pricing. So instead of launching, developers wait. They redesign projects. They explore rental conversions. They try to renegotiate financing, or they shelve the site entirely. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But under the surface, future supply is being quietly erased. Projects cancelled today mean fewer completions 3 to 5 years from now. That is how Vancouver has repeatedly created its own housing shortages. Short-term relief turns into long-term pain. Some developers are going bankrupt, and when people hear about developers going under, they assume complete incompetence. In reality, many of these failures follow the same pattern. Land bought near the peak, financing structured around aggressive pre-sale assumptions, construction debt that now needs to be refinanced at a much higher interest rate, sales that are slow or stopped entirely, and eventually, the lender loses patience. Receivership does not always mean a building was never completed. In some cases, projects are finished but left with unsold inventory and unsustainable debt. Once loans mature and cannot be extended, the lender takes control. At that point, the developer is effectively out of the picture. What we're seeing now is not a full wave yet. It is a clear signal. The pre-sale driven growth model is under real stress, and the margin for error has vanished. This is not just about developers. This is about a system that was built on cheap money, endless demand, and speculative confidence. When those conditions changed and disappeared, the system seized up. Developers are trapped between costs that cannot fall and buyers who will not stretch. Some projects will survive, others will be redesigned, delayed, or cancelled, and a few will fail outright. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe to the channel here or watch another video here.